thank you for joining us at this Bringing the Zoo to You on the Australia House and a couple of the very unique animals that we have here. I am Dan and I am the lead animal care specialist here. Today I'm going to talk to you about the southern hairy-nosed wombat and the short-beaked echidna. And at the end we'll have a little check-in with our new frilled lizards. So here at the Brookfield Zoo we have two southern hairy-nosed wombats. We have Mia right in front here. She was born here to her mom, Cambora, who's the animal in the back. Cambora is 20, and she came from the San Diego Zoo. And like I mentioned, Mia was born here to mom, Cambora, and the late Daryl, and 2 years ago. Cambora is one of the most prolific wombats in North America. She has had 7 joeys. So I said joeys. So the wombat are marsupial, which means that they're young, are born and then develop in a pouch. So they are a nocturnal burrowing marsupial. So they're active mainly at night, and that's mainly because of the high heat in Australia. And they burrow, they form really large warrens or dens underground. So they're mainly solitary, but they do kind of come in contact with other animals in those warrens. They are about 3 feet long, and they can weigh 40 to 70 pounds depending on the wombat, and they can run up to 25 miles an hour. So they're pretty quick animals. In the wild, they would live about 15 years, and probably a very common theme that you're hearing in these Bringing the Zoo to Yous is they live a little bit longer in managed care and can live up to 35 years. They have one joey at a time, so marsupial babies are called joeys. But they can have twins, and actually we did have that here at the Brookfield Zoo one time. So the gestation is 20 to 22 days, and then the joey is born and moves up into the mom's pouch, where they stay for about 6 to 9 months. And then you'll start seeing them come out and kind of nibbling on any of the food, and then they'll go back in the pouch. And then they're usually weaned somewhere between 18 and 24 months. Their predators in the wild are humans, dingoes, and Tasmanian devils. And I didn't mention, but they are herbivores, and you can kind of see Cambora here is enjoying her breakfast, and Mia's over there foraging through some of the straw. They eat mainly grasses, bark, and roots. Here at the Brookfield Zoo, they get a grain, and they get a leaf eater biscuit, which is just formulated for animals that would normally eat leaves. They get some starchies like carrots, sweet potato, and leafy greens. One of my fun facts about the wombats is their defense against those predators that I mentioned earlier. They will run headfirst into their den, and they will often lure the predator in and encourage them to have their head above their rump, and then they will use their really strong and short rump to crush the predator's skull on the top of the den, which is pretty cool.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, and so it's kind of hard to appreciate, but they have a really short butt, and they have a really short tail, so there's not a lot to bite for a predator. So it's their best defense.
Okay.
It's just to have their butts first. Do we want to take questions on the wombats before we move on to the echidnas?
Yes.
Great.
Do you want to talk a little bit about their pouches and how cool they are?
Oh yeah. So what makes the wombat pouch a little bit different from any of the other marsupial pouches is that it faces backwards. So if you think about like a kangaroo, it's kind of upward facing. It faces their chest, like if they were to bend down. So a wombat is always in this position, so you can't really ever see their pouch unless they lay on their back, but it faces backwards, and that's kind of attributed to the fact that, again, they're a burrowing animal, so that think about if they're using those short, powerful front legs and digging, and if the pouch was facing forward, the dirt would be flying into the pouch with the joey. You wouldn't want that.
That would be no fun.
No.
Are their teeth continuously growing?
That's a good question. No, I don't know that for sure, but we don't have to do any trimming or anything on them, so Teeth. Dang it, always with the teeth
I'm
question.
sorry. I'm sorry. I was just curious because I mean
So it's from you. You're asking.
I don't ask questions.
Uh-huh.
What are their favorite things to eat?
Their favorite things to eat are the leaf eater biscuits, which if you can see, they're the little red biscuits in there. They really like those. Those are probably their favorite.
And why are they in a dark area?
So, like I mentioned earlier, they are nocturnal animals. So when you're thinking about exhibiting animals like that in a zoo, you want to allow people to see them when doing natural behaviors. If we had them on our light cycle where it was day during the day, they may not be active because that would be when they would normally be sleeping. That's the same for kind of the other animals that are in this section of the Australia house, like the bats and the echidnas, who we're going to talk about here shortly. We want everybody to be able to enjoy them doing all their natural behaviors, so we try to have them on a more natural light cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that what is our night is their day. So
How long does it take for them to get full grown?
usually between 2 and 3 years. So like I mentioned, Mia's 2. She's almost full grown, but you can appreciate that she's still a little bit smaller than her mom. Again, the mom's the one in the front and Mia's in the back. So they're about, 10 to 14 pounds apart right now. Mia's about 20 kilograms and her mom's right around 27 kilograms.
Let's do one more before we move to echidnas.
Okay.
Is there an area for them to dig here at Brookfield Zoo?
So it's hard to kind of tell how deep it is, but we have little pits in the exhibit that we fill with different substrates, so we swap those out a few times a year. Sometimes they'll have this shredded paper, sometimes they'll have dirt, sometimes they'll have mulch, sometimes they have shavings, which is just shredded trees, basically. So it just depends. And we can take them outside. We have a small yard outside, and they go into crates very easily, so we can transport them out there and take them outside.
All right.
On to the echidna. So these are probably my favorite animal in the zoo and to work with. So we have here the short-beaked echidna, and it's called a beak, and you can kind of see on the front of their face, sometimes it's called short-nosed or short-beaked. So there are, we have 2 males and 3 females here. On this side, we have 4 animals housed together, 2 of the males and 2 of the females. So this is a female that you're looking at here, and we have one of our males is kind of waddling around. That's Cappy. So we have the first animal was Rex, and she is 30 years old, and she was actually born in the wild. And then Cappy, the animal you were just looking at, is almost 13, and he was born at the Philadelphia Zoo, and he was actually born to the 2 other animals that are hiding in the little stump right now, and that is Pokey and Waddles, and they are both 46 years old, if you can believe that. I know, Waddles.
Pokey
She got her name.
Waddles.
I know. Clever naming. So they actually both came from the Philadelphia Zoo, but at a different time. So we had Cappy, and then we got Pokey and Waddles shortly after. So kind of fun. We had Cappy for a while. Oh, this is cool. So you can kind of see their really specialized tongue there. So they are insectivore, and they'll use their short, powerful legs to break through like termite mounds, or just dig through the dirt, and then they'll use that long, sticky tongue, which can be up to 15 inches long, to lap up any of the insects that they're eating. And then the other animal we have is Adelaide, and we'll take a look at her in a little bit. But she is almost 52 years old. She's a cool animal. She's whatever. These animals are just so cool. So what makes them cool to me is they are one of the only mammals that lay eggs. So the long-beaked echidna and the platypus, are called monotremes, and they lay eggs. I don't know, that's just crazy.
So we saw the hedgehog the other day on our
Yes.
Facebook Live, and we've got Quilbert over at Wild Encounters as well.
Yep.
So these guys kind of look like they're a mix between a hedgehog and a porcupine with those quills.
Dare you?
I know. I'm sorry. Are those quills? Are those spines? What are those, and what do they do with them?
They call them spines, and they're actually just a modified hair. So the echidnas have a really short, dense fur. It's actually more easy to appreciate on Adelaide because she doesn't have quite as many spines as the rest of the others do. So the big difference is, unlike porcupines, so they're often confused with porcupines because I think they look more like them than a hedgehog, but their hair, since it's hair, is firmly attached to their skin. All right, we're back. Sorry about that. We're having some Wi-Fi issues here. So we were talking about the echidna's fur and spines. So it's a main defense mechanism for them. They will curl into a ball so that only their spines are out, and it's really hard for predators to get to them and injure them through those spines. They're very sharp. So when we have to handle the echidnas for any reason, we actually have to wear big, thick gloves so that we can handle them without getting poked. Another thing that they will do is kind of wedge themselves in a corner or up against some rocks, and they're really super strong, and they'll hide their head and kind of same thing, just have their spines out as a defense. So I mentioned earlier that they are insectivores. So in the wild, they would eat mainly ants, termites, worms, and grubs. Here at the Brookfield Zoo, their diet is composed of like ground insects and a little bit of dirt to kind of give that, if you think about if they're digging through the dirt to get their diet in the wild, that they're gonna ingest some of that dirt as part of their normal foraging. They do not have teeth, but kind of have these modified pads in their mouth that help grind up the insects, which is kind of cool.
How wide can they open up their mouths?
Not wide.
No?
No. Real small. They really just like stick that tongue out to get their food.
I love how they waddle around.
I know. They are really cool.
Oh my gosh.
So I mentioned earlier that they're a monotreme, which means they're an egg-laying mammal. They are solitary animals that really only come together for mating. They lay an egg into a modified pouch. It's really just like a flap of skin that kind of comes when they need it. And then after 10 days, the puggle is born. The puggle is the name of a baby echidna. That puggle then stays in the pouch for about 2.5 months. And then once it starts to develop spines, ouch, it leaves the pouch. Yeah.
I would hope so.
Right? And then the mom deposits it in a burrow, and kind of it stays there for about 6 months. So she'll go back and nurse it, and then it'll come out and be all adorable.
They have really neat looking claws as well.
Yeah, they do. So they have, they're just neat looking in general. Look at this. Party time. So their front claws and legs are really strong and short, and they dig mainly for food, but they'll make like little divots in the ground to like lay in and stuff. All right, we're back again at the Frilled Lizards. We have 3 frilled lizards here. We have a male, a female, and one of undetermined sex. They are all about 2 years old, and they came from Virginia. So you can see why they're called the frilled lizard. They have this cool cape-like frill that kind of normally just sits on the back of their head when they're in a relaxed state, and actually helps them for camouflaging on the trees. And you can kind of see that if you look elsewhere, Lynette.
I'm going.
So they're really hard to appreciate in the wild, or even here sometimes. We're like, where are they? But what they use that frill for is a defense mechanism. So if a predator's coming at them, they make themselves really big, stand up on their back legs, and fully extend that frill and open their mouths really wide. The inside of their mouths can be like a pink or a yellow color, so it can look kind of intimidating. And if that doesn't work, then they kind of run foolishly away. Google it; they look ridiculous.
Great. I feel like we shouldn't tempt fate.
I'm right. I know. So I'm really excited that you guys got to join me and learn about a few of my favorite animals here at the zoo, the echidnas, the wombats, and now the really cool frilled lizards. And I hope you have a great day.